Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. And so I will just get started with a bit of an introduction here. And feel free to, while we are going through this discussion, to ask questions in the chat, introduce yourself. I'd love to hear about what you're working on or what you're interested in. Happy to really guide this conversation along the way with what you're, mostly interested in or questions you may have, so that you can really get a lot out of this. But we are IRLart. I'm the founder, and IRLart is an arts organization. We've been doing large scale art projects for about a decade now. We have an exhibit right now, an NFT exhibit in the Colorado State Capitol. It's the first NFT exhibit in an American state capitol building. And we're really proud of that. We actually even got NFTs in the governor's office, so it feels like quite an accomplishment. The state of Colorado is really supportive of blockchain technology. We're really lucky that in, I believe, 2019, the Digital Token Act was passed, which gives state level protections to people who want to launch a token. And really, it's been a collaborative effort of people who I will highlight today and talk about, between lawyers and experts that are passionate about cooperatives. There's a saying here that we want to become the cooperative, the Delaware for cooperative. So Delaware is big for incorporating businesses for tax incentives, but Colorado really wants to become majorly like incentivize organizations and companies to move into cooperative status. And there's a lot of alignment between DAOs and cooperatives. So I realized that, so I've given 2 talks already with Vertical Crypto Art that you can find on their YouTube. So this one and this one. So class 25 and then the cohort for class 14. And I realized that I spoke a lot about different DAO tooling, wonderful creative DAOs. I talked a lot about grants. I ran through in the first class how to set up voter NFTs using Polygon, so a really cost-effective, affordable way to start utilizing DAO tooling and voting systems. And the classes were really hands-on. They were more so like, let's jump in, here's some great DAOs to get involved in, here's grants, here's some tooling. But I realized I didn't really talk about much of the history or more of the philosophic aspects of what DAOs are. I didn't really answer the question. So I thought today that we could get into some of that. So that's what I'm going to mainly be covering. But just to bring it back to, let's see, how do I start this over? Here we go. So this is, here we go. I think, do I have to, hopefully you can see my screen okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. But I just wanted to show another project we just finished up. So we've been the art stewards of ETH Denver since 2019. And that was really how I got into NFTs. I'd been into crypto for quite a while, since 2013, but was asked to curate the auction for ETH Denver. And so started to really educate myself on how to mint NFTs and how to run an auction, and have since I think, worked with several hundred NFT artists each year for the exhibit. And this was our one we just did in the beginning of March. So it was only about 3 weeks ago that we hosted this gallery, and you might recognize the artist. He also teaches some classes for vertical crypto art. His name's Untitled XYZ, and he's the resident architect for the Museum of Crypto Art. And so we're really fascinated at this intersection of physical and digital with our own work. And so we had the idea to bring one of his mocha rooms that he's made into reality. And so that was the concept. And we had 16 artists on display. And yeah, so I just wanted to just show some of our current work and give a bit of an introduction there. And so, okay. And I just wanted to start off. And so with DAOs, there's a lot of lore around DAOs. And so I wanted to bring up this fantastic poet, Allen Ginsberg, who's quite famous. He actually taught classes in Boulder, Colorado, which is only about 30 minutes away from Denver. And famous beat poet, and his second section of his book, Howl, there's this part that really talks about Moloch. And so definitely look this poem up. I thought about reading it, but I think I'll let y'all take some time and look up this poem. But it really sets the tone, and it's heavily referenced a lot in especially the metacartel ecosystem, Gitcoin, various organizations really, I think, embrace this lore of Moloch and as kind of like what we're fighting against with DAOs and the art of coordination and this, kind of new radical technology. And so it's really beautiful. The whole Howl book is wonderful. There's also a movie. And so definitely encourage you to look into that. And here are some examples. Here's of, how you might see Moloch come up in different lore that's created around the, I would say primarily the Ethereum community. That's, I'm admittedly a Ethereum maxi, and so I'm not sure if this is quite as utilized as in other networks, but certainly in the Ethereum community, Moloch is this kind of, it's like the antagonist of Ethereum or of public goods, or what we're all trying to kind of rally against. So there's some really cool comics that Gitcoin produced with some different artists and writers. And so if you see something like this and you're like, what is Moloch? Now you know it comes from a wonderful Allen Ginsberg poem, Howl. And I really wanted to get into, some other intersections, and I feel like the history of how we got to where we're at with DAOs, because certainly there's been a foundation that was laid by the cooperative movement. And I wanted to show a few examples of different organizations that are not only investing in cooperatives, but in providing resources, and as far as legal support for formations, and but Zebra Unite does a lot of incredible. If you go down to the very bottom, they have an online community, events, and there are a blog. So there's tons of resources here. I tune into some of their chats because they do different showcases of various cooperatives that are doing really great work, whether it's creative or social justice or housing cooperatives or a number of different initiatives. But I think that cooperatives are somewhat of the I want to say old school, but it's really the foundation, I think, of what DAOs represent and are to the traditional world is what DAOs are to kind of the internet community, and really kind of flesh that out a bit. And I wanted to give an example, but first so Zebras Unite, one of the founders is Nathan Schneider. And so Nathan is a professor at the University of Boulder and runs the media lab there. He is one of the world's leading experts on cooperatives. And this is one of his books. He's written several books, but Ours to Hack and Own, The Rise of Platform Cooperativism, A New Vision for the Future of Work and a Fair Internet. And so he's been really studying this intersection of cooperatives and the internet platform, shared economy, for years now. I believe this book was written in 2016. And so this, I think, was even earlier than, I think, around the time of the first DAO, right? The DAO. And I also, here we go. So actually, Nathan Schneider also edited Vitalik Buterin's new book, Proof of Stake. So just wanted to point out that connection of who Nathan Schneider is, the work he does, and then some of the communities that he's a big part of and really passionate about. And but he's an incredible speaker. He speaks at a lot of crypto conferences. And so just keep an eye out. He has great talks up on, YouTube, from speaking into ETH Denver, Filecoin, a number of different conferences. And so really, he is an incredible resource for anybody interested in cooperative frameworks, and just, I think, anybody interested in really seeing the history and the backstory of really, I think, how we got here, and other real world examples that I feel like are, I think, really wonderful to educate ourselves on so that we can really understand what's possible with this internet technology. Because certainly with DAOs, it's, we're seeing a lot of DAOs govern, say, a protocol. Like, for example, ENS is a massive DAO. And, that's like your .eth, your name service. And so that's a protocol that is governed by the ENS DAO. And, I think that there's a lot to be learned about the history of cooperatives to really see what's possible. And certainly there's examples like City DAO, for instance, that, are governing the ownership of a parcel of land in Wyoming and want to expand into, co-working spaces and purchasing other land and spaces. So I think, there's some certainly examples of, and I think, some real efforts there, but just wanted to give some backstories and wanted to show an example of here in Colorado. that is more on the creative side. So it's called Tinkermill. And it has been a maker space for, I would say, about over 10 years. They started by renting a space and have been collectively governing it, but not with crypto. So none of this is crypto related. It's an old school democratic governing, cooperative. And so you basically buy a membership and you get access to the space and all of their tools. And then you also are a voting member, and they host, weekly and monthly meetings. But, over the years, through their model, they were able to buy the space. They, vote on things like buying new equipment and, repairs, paying for paying stipends to volunteers, things like this. And I just think it's really impressive. I think they're doing great work. One of the cool things too is each of the larger machines, like the laser cutters, they have a QR code that you scan, and it'll recognize if you've taken the class or not to be able to operate the machine. So they have some really cool tech integrations to the space. But I think it's a really incredible example. You can look up on their wiki and see all sorts about Tinkermill on their website here. And I think it's just an incredible example of what I think is possible with DAOs, and just, an example of one of these more like old school cooperative models that has been really successful. And yeah, so I talked about ours to hack and own. So that's Nathan. And then just wanted to, recommend some more books. I just finished reading Cryptopians a little while back. Incredible book. Laura Shin is a wonderful writer. She has a podcast called Unchained that is incredible. Interviews some really, wonderful thinkers and creators and developers in the mainly Ethereum community. But this book, The Cryptopians, she just wrote, is an incredible history of Ethereum. So a lot of really detailed writing about the beginning of Ethereum. So really covered the DAO hack, which, was really the first DAO, and that is the reason why there's Ethereum Classic and the Ethereum that is mainly used today. And because there was a fork, it was a major governance decision between the DAO and the Ethereum Foundation. And it just really shows, I think, the early days of coordinating capital and coordinating people. And I think it's just, a really great comprehensive book that can give you insight into, again, how we got here. So at least in the last, 7 years. So it's really, or 7, 8 years, 2015-ish. And it was when Ethereum really got going. And I think it's just really wild to read and to see. But, of course, like I mentioned, just the depth of the history of cooperatives, I think, is for anybody interested in really understanding, why DAOs, right? Versus like what are DAOs. It's, why DAOs exist and how they exist, because there is this vast history of, shared ownership and the sharing economy, and what that means of equity. And, I think crypto and DAOs have definitely accelerated cooperative models heavily and popularized them, but the history, and even like some big examples would be REI, which is a big like outdoor goods, camping kind of survival gear, all sorts of like outdoorsy gear. Huge company. It is considered a cooperative, and you get patronage back as a member every year for, purchasing things. And, so there's all sorts of ways to approach cooperatives, whether it's patronage, which is kind of like a percentage back for participating, essentially. And, other examples would be, another example here local is a restaurant called Sexy Pizza, and it's employee owned. And so the employees get bonuses, and they have some governance rights on, their employment, their benefits, things like this. And, I think also looking into kind of union and labor movements, I think would be really helpful, because I think all of these things really intersect. And so I realized in my last couple of talks, I didn't really even touch on these things, because really the DAO landscape is so vast. I think there's over 4,000 DAOs now, and ranging from creative to investment to, overseeing protocols. It's very vast. And so in my last couple of classes, I just really dug into DAO tooling and creative DAOs. And so I just wanted to give a bit of context so that, to answer really a deeper, more philosophic question about what are DAOs and why DAOs, because I think that there is an incredibly rich history that has helped us get to where we are today. And so, just some great books. I haven't finished this yet, but it's really technical, but there's some really great information here in Proof of Stake too. It's mainly Vitalik's like blog posts over the years compiled together, and some really interesting kind of, histories of various like proof of excellence I hadn't known about. And so that was something that is in this book that's a whole nother topic, but just some really interesting things here too. So I just wanted to recommend some good books, some good resources, the Zebras Unite, and really just illustrate some and give some examples of, more traditional cooperatives, and just kind of like the vastness of all of it. So, and the history. So I also just found this really great resource, DAOhandbook.xyz. Thought it was really incredible and comprehensive handbook to DAOs. So all these different topics that you can really get into. I mentioned the DAO hack, right? And which is, heavily discussed in the book Cryptopians, but just another resource here that, really breaks down all these different, topics that really encompass all the aspects of how DAOs operate, and what all you would need to know about for, I think, starting your own DAO, especially, or just, I think people who are interested in participating in a DAO, I think that seeing all of these different aspects of really the infrastructure, it's helpful too to know that these are all ways that you can participate. And just, having resources for really understanding kind of nuances to how DAOs operate. So I just wanted to show this resource. There's a ton, community management, bounties, talking about fundraising. So all sorts of great resources there. And one of the, one of these, I think at the contribute to a DAO. So if you click on contribute to a DAO, this pops up, and there's a great article here of best DAOs to join. Just, I mentioned City DAO earlier. They're really interesting. And, just as some examples of the different efforts that are happening, the DAOs are rallying around. So, Kraus House is aspiring to buy an NBA team together. Longevity Research, Lex DAO, which I believe I have their website pulled up. So Lex DAO, wanted to touch on them because I think that the work they're doing is so critically important. But also just a great resource. So Lex DAO, group of lawyers that specialize in crypto and blockchain. So, again, if you're interested in starting a DAO, they are an incredible resource. But they are so. Gosh, I'm forgetting some of the people's names. So some of the founders and members of Lex DAO were who contributed to writing the Digital Token Act of 2019 for the state of Colorado. So they are literally working and helping with things such as, legislation and regulation, and really helping craft this relationship of legal formation, and really just a massive, wonderful resource for people wanting to form DAOs or understand kind of the legal landscape. And it's a real global initiative. So depending on where you're based out of, they are all over. So just wanted to really highlight their work. Gosh, trying to remember. Yev Munich, there it is. Okay, so Yev Munich is one of the lawyers, and she's incredible. I'd be happy to, I'm sure on YouTube, if you just look up Yev Munich, so anybody who's interested in the legal side of things or just wanting to educate yourself more, Yev Munich is just wonderful. And she's hireable, and Jason Weiner also, so Jason Weiner and Yev teamed up, and he is who helped REI. Well, yeah, I think he helped REI become a cooperative, as well as there's a big brewery here called New Belgium that went into employee ownership. So just again, and they're, big friends with Nathan Schneider and Kayvon Kalabari, who I mentioned, his restaurant, Sexy Pizza. So that's an employee ownership model. Pizzeria here in Denver. I think they have some in a few other states. It's a franchise, but just wanted to, show some of these people so that you can really dig in on their work. So Nathan and Yev, and because there's just a huge wealth of information there at that intersection of like, the legal side, the cooperative side, crypto, DAO. There's a lot of intersecting values, ideas, and paths forward that, Lex DAO has been working to carve that path, And so, yeah, I just wanted to really show them. And just, and a lot of these I've talked about in my other classes, so I won't go in too much, but, Metacartel, Seed Club, Bankless, Cabin, Friends with Benefits, tons of really interesting DAOs that you can check out here. And this was all from that DAO handbook website, so you can go to it from Contribute to a DAO. And just a ton of great, and I think for anybody interested in either forming a DAO or joining a DAO, I think it's really helpful to look at, some various DAOs as examples, see how they're doing things, and then also just to see what's out there that you might be interested in participating in or contributing to because you care about their goals, right? Because right now it's really, I think hyper specific. So everyone's kind of, creating these DAOs to really hone in on a specific topic or goal or initiative. And, really DAOs are just their superpower is coordinating capital and coordinating people and for a shared goal. And so, and really that's just so similar to the history of cooperatives. But here's another great article that Origami posted not too long ago. Yeah, about a little bit over a month ago. And just kind of a roundup of venture DAOs. So, right, investment DAOs. And so, especially for anybody who is in here looking to raise money from DAOs, I think that's a great way to participate or, look at DAOs, but just a roundup of investment DAOs. So, and I know I dug in on Cult DAO last time, so I'm a guardian of Cult DAO. And we do 13 ETH investments or grants to different people. I think at this point we've given over 1,400 ETH in the last about a year. And it's a fascinating, pretty revolutionary group. And also Buffacorn Ventures. So that was founded out of ETH Denver. So kind of highlighting a few here, but this is a really great article that really breaks down, different kinds of venture DAOs. Because there's several on here like Flamingo and I'm sure others that are specifically collecting NFTs or commissioning artworks and, creator. So just wanted to kind of highlight some of this. And they, again, because I think it's becoming clear with legal and regulations, but I think, like I was mentioning earlier, there's a ton of good information out there for some of the frameworks and formation information. So anyway, and then at the bottom they have kind of a bio and links. So I thought that was a really great article that kind of just round up current info. And this is pretty broad, but I did want to share this. This is an incredible resource of literally anything you might want to know about Ethereum. It's a little overwhelming, I think, but I think it's just great at, to bookmark it. And I've been trying to read more recently. So, just taking some time in the evening after work or when you have a break just to kind of scan through some of this stuff that you might be interested in. It's so broad, really good, compilation here of historic DevCon talks and all their videos. But I think a lot of it's pretty, technical, but, just compiles all the test networks for Ethereum and faucets so you can get some testnet ETH to, say you're working on launching an NFT project or doing various things. You can have all your testnet to run a full test before you launch something. And just wanted to, show this. Some really, great newsletters you could check out, YouTube channels, news channels, various wallets, hardware wallets, thought pieces, various, just really incredible resource doc here. I found this a few days ago and thought that it was really wonderful. So legal again. So anyway, just wanted to share this. You can find it on GitHub by searching, for these ETH list. So moving forward, just also found another great app called Grantor.app, and for people interested in getting grants, I feel like I've talked a lot about that in my last two chats, so I won't dig in too in depth specifically on any of these, but I thought this was actually pretty perfect because it's just a really great kind of overview so you can look, for specific grants in these different categories, and it links out directly to the forms to apply and to learn more about these different grants, but like OpenSea grants and Arweave. There's a ton of really great creative ones on here. I think a lot of them are technical, but I think there's a ton of grants available for community building and content creation, NFTs. A lot of organizations are looking for creative educational pieces, right? Whether that's an article or videos. Meta Gamma Delta is an incredible organization supporting women and all sorts of stuff. Sevens Foundation is really cool. IRLart DAO, you might remember. There's going to be a quiz later. I'm just kidding. But Solana grants. So and really every network. I know I focus a lot on Ethereum, but every network you might be working on, whether it's Polygon or Solana or Tezos, XRP, I know has a big grant. So they all have different grants programs. And so it's not just Ethereum, that ecosystem that has grants. There's really, if you look up, Polygon grants, there's I'm sure a way to apply. And so, and I've talked about all of that in previous classes, but I just wanted to show this Grantor app. It's really great. They also have a page on Gitcoin. So Gitcoin is I always call it like the GoFundMe for crypto, but you can have a profile on there, and it's a great way to discover projects like this and also support them. So, say you get a grant and you're like, hey, I found this grant through your app, maybe kick them 10, $20 just as a thank you for providing their service so they can keep it awesome. Because, it takes work to compile these things and keep them updated and the links updated. So they have a Gitcoin grant and that you can support their grantor app. But yeah, moving forward, I thought this project was really, really epic. I actually learned, so I worked at Meow Wolf for 3 years, for anyone who knows what Meow Wolf is. But I actually learned about this project through some of my friends that I used to work with at Meow Wolf. And they started this project called Artisan, and they're doing daily grants, but they are, I just went through a while back and was looking at the projects they've supported, and I joined their community, and it just blew my mind, the projects that have been funded. I mean, there are some really, really mind-blowing creators that are, trying to get grants and pitching their projects. And it was just so inspiring to see the different people and their projects. So Artisan, definitely worth looking into, even just for inspiration or potentially for funding. You can apply. Their website's super easy to navigate, lots of great information. They're really active both in their Telegram and Discord. So just a great way to, tap into creative community and really, and I thought it was interesting. It's really at the intersection of art, tech, science, and design. So there's a lot of really interesting, more science-based projects around like mycelium and kind of hacking plants and synthesizers and that kind of stuff. So lots of really, I would say, pretty experimental projects that are seeking funding and just building community around arts and funding. So yeah, just wanted to highlight this project as a really cool one to check out. And then Fry's DAO, I found this one from that DAO handbook list of DAOs to join. I just thought it was kind of interesting. So along the topic of cooperatives, right? A lot of cooperatives are about, like a housing cooperative and shared real estate. That's a really, I think, probably one of the more, I don't know how to say, like the more popular cooperative models, and or a good use case for cooperatives, right? So I thought this was interesting where it's a DAO that's buying franchises, but it actually seems like a really good opportunity for anyone interested in, getting access to capital to buy a franchise. And I thought it was just a good example of, how DAOs are empowering, flexible funding, much more so than you could get, say, from a bank or as a loan or a mortgage. And I think that it's just a good example of how DAOs could really be utilized to empower people. That, yeah, like they mention in here, if you want to apply, that there's where did it go? No credit checks are necessary. I mean, that's unheard of for traditional financing. And so just, I'll be interested to follow this project and to see how, the success stories and the issues they might run into. Because, a lot of this stuff hasn't been done in the context of a DAO. And so this is all very new and kind of uncharted territory as far as specifically DAOs go. And I just think it's fascinating. So Fry's DAO, Fry's Fund. And I talked earlier about Yev Munich and Lex DAO and Digital Token Act, but just wanted to link here to their Substack. Lots of really incredible resources and articles here. And they have both a Discord and a Telegram, but just, and you can join, you can become a member of Lex DAO. And so just wanted to show their Substack so you can be connected. Moving forward. So I mentioned that we have an exhibit at the state capitol right now, and we got a grant to support that project through Public Nouns DAO. So I'll go back just to show you on our website. So this is the exhibit, Public Good, and we wanted to have artists really explore and create artwork around the concept of public good, of like what public goods don't but should exist in today's world. And so it was really cool. We applied to a grant. You can find it here if you just go, so if you go to Public Nouns website, this is their front page, but then you click DAO, shows how much they have in their treasury and all the proposals. And so this was our proposal right here. And it got voted through for 10 ETH to support our exhibit at the state capitol. So just wanted to show a recent example of applying to a DAO for funding. And so, you just connect your wallet and submit a proposal. But for different DAOs, they operate differently. So for Public Nouns, you need to own one of their NFTs to put a proposal in, or you find someone who has an NFT to champion your proposal for you. So we just decided to buy one because I wanted to support the community. I really appreciate what they're doing. And so I had thought about finding someone to just champion our proposal, but ultimately I decided to buy an NFT and support them and just put the proposal in myself. And I think let's see if it says, I believe it's like a 3-day period. So it's very quick. Once you put a proposal up, it's always good to workshop stuff in their Discord. So before putting a proposal just directly up on someone's website, or I think it's always great to introduce the proposal on, their correct channels on Discord and to really answer questions people might have. So just wanted to get in. And so you might have heard of Nouns DAO, and that's where Public Nouns came from. So Public Nouns is specifically wanting to support and promote public goods, right? Which is the protagonist in the story against Moloch is public goods. So Nouns DAO is the main DAO, though, that is really supporting a ton of other DAOs. And I think you can see why. They have a massive treasury and just developed a really cool model where, they auction off one NFT every 12 hours or every 24 hours. I'm not sure, but either way, all of the money goes into the treasury, and everyone who holds an NFT votes on what proposals to support. And there is just an incredible amount of things happening in this whole ecosystem, and definitely something to look into if you're interested in starting a DAO or participating, Prop House is the underlying model. So if you wanted to start your own nouns derivative, right? So start your own nouns like project, you can actually do it through Prop House. So that's why public nouns and nouns DAO look so much alike, because they are the exact same infrastructure that was built using Prop House. So there's all sorts of organizations that are using nouns DAO technology, or their model, however you want to put it, to create their own communities that are rallying for various causes. So just wanted to highlight that. And I was actually surprised to see Juicebox had raised some money on here. So let's see. Anyway, it's somewhere on here, but Juicebox is also a really incredible tool, to start. I'm just trying to cover things I haven't covered in my other classes. So there's a lot of different, ways to start a DAO, raise money, to get grants, all of it. But this is one I don't think I brought up in one of the other classes. So Juicebox. But yeah, they just raised a bunch of money on Prop House, and so it's but yeah, you can create a project on here similar, I think in some ways to like GoFundMe for crypto is like helps me to understand what some of so it's for crowdfunding. You can do NFT projects, kind of do like a Patreon type project. So there's all sorts of ways to I always say the Web3 space is very DIY. So it's very much so choose your own adventure of how you want to put something together. But, exploring projects that have launched on here is always really helpful to see what's possible, and, the things that have been successful, so you can kind of see what people might be interested in or supporting in this kind of ecosystem. And yeah, I just wanted to, kind of circle back just to make sure, in case anybody hasn't seen the other videos, or just an overview of really some of the more heavily utilized DAO tooling. So Snapshot is huge. And in my first video, I talk about how to just set up your own. So if you look, we're information here. And there's a companion app called SourceCred. And here's the website for SourceCred. So this is how you would set up a SourceCred, is by going to their main website and GitHub. But they have, this is the front end of what it looks like once you have it set up, and they're companions, I would say, to Snapshot. So a lot of organizations use SourceCred to have just more in-depth proposals or information about what's voted on, because as you can see on Snapshot, like, you can add a lot of stuff in here, but sometimes it's nice to really be able to flesh that out more, and it allows for comments. So you can really engage a bit differently and more robustly through through SourceCred. Whereas then Snapshot is where you're voting for things. But what's cool about SourceCred too is you can integrate it into Discord and Telegram, I think. And there's a lot of really robust functionalities with tracking engagement, whether it's through voting or through commenting or liking things or sharing things. It's actually it's a pretty robust back-end tool that you can integrate into Discord to, say, give token allocations. So another feature there. So anyway, won't go into all of that too much, but lots of great resources for DAO tooling, and these are some of the more widely used tools that, yeah. And so, yeah, another one I wanted to highlight that I haven't in other classes was Radical. It's a really cool code community. They that are utilizing all this same kind of tooling. So they are open sourcing great code. It's another great resource for code and grants for anything more technical based, but just wanted to highlight that. And then I think we had Yev on this YouTube. Yep. So anyway, let's see. I wanted to kind of take a little bit of a pause and see if anybody had any questions, or if you wanted to, kind of shake things up a little bit. Happy to continue chatting, but just wanted to kind of do a temperature check, see how everyone's feeling, and be interested to hear if anybody in here was a part of the other classes, or if you have any success stories of grants that you might have gotten, or DAOs that you started contributing to. The last chat we had, one of the artists brought up Refractions DAO, and I had never heard of them. And I recently bought one of their passes and have been, trying to support their work and check them out more. I was going to try to go to their event during ETH Denver, but I was just too busy or tired from our own gallery build to go. But they're doing really cool stuff, and they have a lot of creator grants periodically available. And so, I was excited to learn about a new DAO, a creative DAO that I hadn't heard about through someone mentioning it in the last class. So if there's anything cool that you want to share, or share that you're working on, or questions that you have, please feel free to ask and share. I'm going to drink a little coffee.
Hi, this is Christian here. I'm curious to know about the Artisan DAO. Would you have to be a member of the DAO in order to acquire the grant? Can you just apply? Is it simply a collection of people who are in fact working as philanthropists on behalf of the art community? Or is it in fact members who are being funded? They're funding each other in their diverse variety of projects.
Yeah, great question. So, Artisan is so fascinating. I love that it's really its own model that I haven't quite seen before that they've built out. So, anybody can apply. I definitely encourage, like I said, to join their Discord and Telegram. And there's a process of applying, but you can learn more about, how to apply on their website. You just, fill out this type form, but I always encourage, look at other projects that have successfully been granted and, introduce your project and get some support preemptively in the Discord and Telegram. And so that people, it's not just, new once you apply. So you can really introduce yourself and get feedback. The Discord's really active. And so you could pretty instantly get feedback on your proposal before you submit it and see, again, just see what other people have submitted. But then so if you apply and successfully get granted, then you get some of their artifacts. And then that's how you become a DAO member. And so you get artifacts either by donating or by being funded. And so everyone who participates by getting granted or by funding then become DAO voters for the grants. So you become a grant curator. And so there's just, they have so much good information right here on their website about how to become a curator, how to apply for the grants. And
Well, I'm just amazed that they give out a grant every day. That strikes me as a really very extraordinary achievement. I mean, most granting agencies work annually, semi-annually. They work seasonally. They give out money, infrequently. Whereas this agency seems to be capable of funding people daily. That seems a very strange thing to do. I'm quite amazed by it.
Yeah, and it's really a wide range of grants too, which I think that depending on how much is pooled at any given time is how they're allocating. So there's certainly times when the pool is larger, so there will be a larger amount of grants and larger you know sizes of the grant. So, I saw where some people had gotten like $25,000, some people were getting $1,000. So it's really fluid or flexible with how the pool is doing. So it's really interesting, and it's a really cool group of people. I found it to be really inspiring because I think a lot of the DAOs, like I showed earlier, really specific, where, we last year got a big grant through Decentraland, for instance, and it was metaverse related. So we did this series of metaverse projects. And while it was really broad and we explored a lot of different types of projects through that grant, it was really specific in the sense that it all was expressed through the metaverse. And so I think that things like Artisan are really attractive and interesting for artists because it's so broad. It doesn't need to be just a metaverse project. It doesn't need to be just an NFT project. It could be something, exploring Web3 very broadly or non-specifically. So I think that that's really interesting for, so, and they give updates of, how much is in their their pool. So yeah, there's just so much information here that you can really dig into, and definitely encourage people to, follow these people on Twitter or, LinkedIn, various places, and stay up to date on these things, because it's wonderful just to fill your feed with people who are passionate about funding the arts and sharing cool projects, and staying away from the crazy side of crypto. I feel like is how you keep from getting burned out. I know it's been a pretty wild and volatile last, especially since my last class with vertical crypto art, just how much has happened since then. I think it's really a great act of, if you're an artist or creative, to, look into these projects and follow these people and make sure you're counterbalancing the, I think, the harsher things that are happening in crypto that are can really have a negative impact on your mental health and things like that, to really fill your feed with inspiring people that are doing really incredible work. So just wanted to, highlight them, because, also kind of similar but different in some ways. I know I mentioned the refractions group. I actually, learned about them through vertical crypto art. In my last class, somebody brought them up as another really cool creative DAO. So somewhat similar but different. They have all sorts of really cool projects. They've funded everything from like zines to house parties to, clothing lines, to so much different things. And they do events and all sorts of cool stuff. So there's just some really incredible communities at the intersection of like Web3 and artists. And I think finding and supporting these communities or participating, there's a lot of opportunities to both participate or get grants, or even just sharing and being able to create that like mutual aid resource network of good organizations. So using your platform to share out different cool projects like this. So anyway, great question, Christian. And I do think it's really impressive, and I'm always really grateful to see artists and creatives getting finding unique ways to create grants programs. And I think we have various opportunities throughout the year, but it's certainly not as stable or consistent as something like what Artisans created. So I find myself as an arts organizer really studying these models and trying to learn about these people and that have founded these projects and how it was successful and what they're doing. And I mean, similar with Nouns DAO, I mean, I think it's like mind blowing how successful they've been. And a lot of my journey is just really trying to educate myself on these things so that I can create my own, continue to empower and create my own systems to support the arts. We're really passionate about, making the world a more beautiful place and empowering artists to do what they love full time. And all the opportunities that we do, we strive to make them paid opportunities. So even artists that are displaying their work, we try to give stipends, or let artists choose their own commission and things like this to really radically support the artist. And so we rely heavily on grants, and that's really where my perspective with DAOs and grants comes from, is finding ways to support our work so that we can really altruistically support the artist versus needing to create bigger business models out of like extractive business models that essentially are taking profits from artists. So we're always kind of experimenting and iterating on different models and looking towards other organizations and participating heavily in all sorts of different DAOs, whether it's, we, over the last couple of years, have participated heavily with MetaFactory and, like I said, Decentraland DAO and Gitcoin. And there's another really cool one I mentioned in another class called Botto. And there's, and Super Rare. So Super Rare is really fascinating for anyone who's not aware. So with how a lot of DAOs kind of initially get their user base, it's hard to explain this, but they do retroactive rewards that are in the form of governance tokens. So Super Rare here, and maybe I can find a good article or something. Yeah, so here we go. So with Super Rare, one of the largest NFT platforms, I've been an artist on Super Rare since 2019, and I always joke that I probably wouldn't even get accepted now. It's an application process to be a part of Super Rare, and it's just increasingly gotten harder. But I got on really early when they were accepting pretty much everyone. But when they launched their token, they did a calculation based on the number of works sold and the volume of what you've sold, and gave tokens to both the artist and the collectors. And then so those tokens become your voting power in the Super Rare DAO. And so, when I talk about cooperative models and shared ownership and equity, that's what I'm talking about is, and some people are using NFTs, some people are using tokens, but all of your actions matter when you're working in Web3. And whether that's, like Optimism, just a new network, just did an airdrop of their tokens, and it was all based on DAO governance. So how much you've participated in various DAOs. And I thought that was fascinating. So depending on whether you're active and voting, or there's all these things happening behind the scenes where people, like for Botto, for instance, it's a really cool AI DAO. They gave an airdrop of tokens to everyone who's on Super Rare. And so I think for Botto, it was a way to get artists involved into what they were building, and to, but there's just been all of these really cool perks and things that have happened over the last several years of participating in Web3 that were surprises, of, oh, wow, because I did this, now I qualify to be a part of this community and have voting power. And it's just been really interesting. So, I always encourage people to participate, because you never know what might happen. And so it's hard to explain because, usually things like in a normal work environment is very transactional, right? I do X to get Y or whatever. And with Web3, it's much more fluid, where just by participating down the road, you might get some kind of retroactive reward for having done those actions. And so it really creates this air of, I would say, altruism. There's also a big movement, because the crypto community is, Web3 community is so global, of asynchronous work environments. And it's so interesting to me. Just the whole dynamics of this space are very, it's a really, I think, profound counter narrative to the normal ways in which a lot of us have worked in our normal careers. And so I think that it's a really incredible playground for creatives to explore these ideas and to iterate on these ideas for their own uses, whether it's getting funding or finding new ways to create a funding mechanism or building a community. And so anyway, the sky's the limit. So hopefully that explains some things. And it's such a wild rabbit hole, and it's such a journey of learning these different nuances and things, and coming up with your own. It's really still a blank slate too, of I always equate it, the Web3 is very DIY. And I show some examples in other classes of that, of really cool ways that people have fundraised and gotten access to funding that otherwise, because I work a lot in what, you might consider Web 2, which is like the State Capitol Project is actually a really interesting example of working between very traditional arts organizations that are ran by the state, but then producing an NFT exhibit. And so navigating both worlds. And there's, like, with some funding that you get from, say, applying for a project like that through the state or through arts organizations that are supporting projects like this, could take months to apply for and get all the proper documentation. So I think that there's just the quick and easy nature. I mean, I know that there's some more complicated aspects of managing digital assets and security with, wallets, and aspects that are still complicated and hard to navigate. But once you get that under your belt and feel more proficient in that, it's so much easier to get funding through Web3 than traditional routes, in my perspective, because you can apply for grants and hear back within 3 days. I've yet to apply for any kind of Web3 grant that needed, any of my tax history or P&Ls or reports of, our business operations of, I mean, it's exhaustive sometimes how much documentation traditional grants need from organizations. And when you're a small organization, that can be a make it or break it of whether or not, you get access to the funding that you need. And so I think Web3 is really doing a great job of trying to lower those barrier of entries, cut that red tape, and make it easier. And so there's really some major advantages of learning how to manage digital assets. And so on our website too, and this will probably be how I wrap up here, is down at the bottom of IRLart.com. We've got resource docs that I try to keep updated. So there, and then here's a link to our snapshot and all of our socials. We have a Discord as well, and I have a channel in my Discord where I share all of our templates for applying for different grants, and whether or not they were successful or not. I always encourage people to fork our grant proposals so you can apply for your own grants and see how we did it and things like that. So We have some good resources on our Discord, great community of artists. But our resource docs have information about, multi-sigs and different wallets and good practices. So all sorts of good resources. But I think that's really all I have. And I'm always open to, if you want to get feedback on a proposal that you might be wanting to submit for a grant, or a project that you're working on that you might want an artist perspective or an arts organizer perspective, curator. Always happy to give feedback. So definitely look at me as a resource if you need anything. And feel free to follow me on Twitter, reach out there on Discord. And yeah, any other questions, or feel free also just to share your Twitter. Happy to follow people, or anything else. Yeah, thank you, Christian. Thanks for participating and coming today. I'm so grateful to Vertical Crypto Art. What an incredible organization for hosting these classes. I didn't even know that so it's my third class. I always love an opportunity to share information and, get good information out there. But I got they gave me some Tezos token for, participating in the classes. And it was a surprise to me. And I thought I might show you. I actually started so I decided to use my Tez that I got for teaching the class to start my Tezos collection. So if you have art on Tezos, let me know, because I want to keep collecting. Yeah, here we go. So here's my Tezos collection so far. Pretty cool ones. So I'm grateful for Vertical Crypto Art for helping me get my Tezos collection of artwork going. Oh, nice. There we go. Yeah, see, there's some interesting overlays here with, I'm still learning about Tezos myself, but I know Vertical Crypto Art's big in the experimental poet. Cool. My friends at ETH Denver were putting together a, oh, nice. Great. Oh, wow. They're wonderful. But my friends at ETH Denver put together a project that they submitted as part of the competition at ETH Denver called Ode Node. And it was supposed to be a NFT platform for poets. And some really cool people were working on that. Some of my friends, and big. So you might have appreciated my Allen Ginsberg bit. I'm sure in some ways you probably already were aware. But anyway, I am grateful for everyone showing up, and I hope you enjoy finding new ways to fight Moloch. I'm trying to find a way to segue out. Yeah, cheers, everyone.
Thank you.